Hello and welcome to another time-lapse video with commentary, and today I am talking over some artwork that's related to our daughter. So this first piece here is the birth announcement that we sent to family and friends, and then the second piece of art that you'll see is some Back to the Future themed art for her nursery. And let's get into it. Let's talk about the not-so-secret origin story of our daughter's name. I say not so secret because you could just ask us why she's named Mardie Jones, and we will tell you, but we've told the story a lot since she was born, and I thought it'd be fun to put it in a video over some art. So the Mardie of her name came from Nicole. She knew a girl in high school named Mardie, and it was spelled M-A-R-D-E-E, and she really liked that name. She thought it was very unique, and she didn't realize that it was also very similar to Marty McFly, which happens to be my favorite movie character from my favorite movie of all time, Back to the Future. And it must have just slipped out of her mind, but I said, yes, I think that's a wonderful name for our baby. The Jones of it all came from me. And way before we even thought about having kids, we had that conversation about what our kids' names would be. And I told her I liked the name Jones for a boy or a girl. I just thought it would be a cool name to have for a kid. And I didn't tell her why, I just thought Jones was a cool name, and it started with a J, and J names seem to run a lot in my family. People are like, oh, is it because of Indiana Jones or Jessica Jones or even Casey Jones, who happens to be my favorite Ninja Turtle character of all time? So that would make sense for me, being a Ninja Turtle fan. And actually, she's named after Jonesy, which is the name of the cat in Alien. And I told Nicole that, and she was like, no, you're not naming our daughter or future child after a cat from a sci-fi horror film. So then Jones went away. And so I agreed to Marty. And then throughout the pregnancy, I kind of wanted to bring Jones back into the picture. And I said, what about Jones as the middle name? And then we were trying to decide whether or not we wanted to have a hyphenate for her last name, so it'd be Solis Castaneda, and we just thought that was too long. So then I said, well, why don't we make Solis the middle name, and then we can have Jones as part of the first name, so she'd have two first names instead of two last names. And for some reason we thought that made more sense, and it would seem less longer than the other way, but it's exactly the same. It's still four names. And then the crazy coincidence that sort of happened was on July 2nd, I read on Twitter that the 36th anniversary of the release of Back to the Future was going to happen on July 3rd, 2021. I looked at Nicole, I said, how freaking wild would it be if she was born on July 3rd, on the anniversary of my favorite movie of all time, and her name is Mardie. And then sure enough, that same night that I read that little factoid, around 11-ish, her water broke, and then we safely rushed to the hospital. And then 8 hours later at 7:33 a.m., the anniversary of my favorite movie of all time, our daughter, Mardie Jones, Solis Castaneda, was born into the world. And how bizarre is that? It's been kind of a roller coaster in terms of where the name came from and how we got here, but it's also kind of a really nice and beautiful story, one that I'm sure she'll be excited to hear about, and then I can just play her this video and be like, look, it's on the internet. So yeah, that is the story of where the name Mardie Jones came from. And it's a lot of, kind of coincidence and fate and nerdy pop culture stuff, even though Nicole will probably deny it forever that half of her name is because of a cat in a horror film. But there you go. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the story of where Mardie's name came from, and I hope you enjoyed watching this time lapse of some of the art surrounding her name. You know, Nicole agreed to a Back to the Future themed nursery, and I don't think she was prepared for how geeky I was going to make it. And this was the final piece of the nursery, this nice picture of George McFly and Lorraine Baines, which is the first thing you see when you enter her nursery. So I hope you enjoyed this little storytelling of our daughter's name, and we will see you on the next. Take care.